Welcome, welcome, welcome to AI powered leadership, revolutionizing school decision making and culture. Oh, I love it. I feel like I'm preaching and I love it. I cannot wait to get into this one. And you may be like, well, who are you, woman? Well, first of all, hello. I am Dr. Desiree Alexander. I'm the founder CEO of Educator Alexander Consulting, and I am your host for today. And these are all of the different ways you can get to me. So there you go. As long as you can get to my website, you can get to me. For my people that are going to be watching this on YouTube, hey y'all. Second thing is, no, you do not get a certificate for attending the webinar on YouTube, but you do get the knowledge. And the next thing is make sure that you go underneath the video and get the resource for today. It will be linked right underneath the video. People that are watching this live, what's up? We're about to have some fun. All right, what's coming up next? Classroom. Google Classroom. For my people that know James Bond, you have to say it like that. So, Google Classroom is um, a requested webinar. People are like, you know what, we really just need some basic Google Classroom, especially for a lot of our new people that are just coming into this space. They use a whole bunch of Google tools, but they've never used Google Classroom. I was like, yes, I'm very happy to oblige. So we'll be doing that on Saturday, September 6th. And then we have Beyond the Devices, Digital Equity in Ed Tech with the phenomenal Dr. Sarah Thomas. So I'm very happy. We've been friends for a long time, friends and colleagues and edutech colleague, whatever. But absolutely love that she's going to be on our webinar series. So there you go. And then I will say we have two in the works. So we have two that will be being announced pretty soon. One is in October, I think, and one is in November. So we have two that are coming up that we can't announce just yet, but it'll be soon. And then, of course, we have more that will be coming. So self-paced online courses. We always have our self-paced online courses. We have the SLLA test prep for people that are trying to get into educational leadership. Half the state, in the United States at least, take that test. And then we have Google Cert Level 1 and Level 2. It will be updating it, everybody. So Google certifications will be updating, which means my classes will be obsolete as of September 2nd. So I will be updating that as soon as possible. And we have support time and all that good stuff. And then this is the biggie. Tell me if you want to see a certain topic for our webinars or if you may want to present. We have first time presenters. We have presenters that have been presenting for years and years and years and years and years. We have international presenters. So please, if you want to present something, we are here for you. Or if you're like, Desiree, I just would love to see a webinar on this certain topic. Let us know. That's how we get topics for some of our webinars is that you request it and we go out and find it. Like the autism one that we have coming up soon. So, a lot of good things in the works. We're excited. But guess what? I'm way more excited about today. So, we are going to learn about AI powered leadership. And I'm going to shut my mouth so we can go ahead and get started.
Right. Good morning, everybody. What an introduction. Thank you, Dr. Alexander, for sharing all of that and for getting the people excited and hyped up for today's session. I am thrilled to share this session with the people. I've shared this session with at a couple of conferences, and it's been a big hit. Um, and I decided like this would be a great topic to do for people who don't necessarily, have go to the conferences and things like that. So here we are on a Saturday morning, just getting AI powered leadership on, and this session is really going to help you learn how to use AI in kind of different ways, not just to write an email or things like that. I always like to try to come up with things that are outside the box that people might use AI for. And I think you'll enjoy some of the things that we have to share with you today. So, quick introduction to myself. My name is Cloyd. Um, Overall, I'm a learning and development specialist and currently serve as a digital learning specialist in Klein ISD. Shouting out a few Klein friends who are joining us today. And I've done a little bit of everything from digital learning, professional learning, assistant principal. I was an English teacher, and I've enjoyed all of it. And just recently became an author and published a book called Amplified Education, Creating Future-Ready Schools in the Age of AI. I'll share that with you at the end. That's not really why we're here today, but I just wanted to let you know that is something that has recently come out. So I'm excited that some of what we're sharing today is in the book also. All right, so you're probably wondering what the session is. Well, first, I like to tell you what the session is not about. It is not really an AI for beginners session. I'm not going to teach you, the first basics of using AI. I'm not teaching you how to write better emails with AI. I'm not teaching you how to create newsletters and flyers and all of the basic administrative efficiency things. Hopefully, you have learned those at some point in your career already. Now that we're almost 3 years into having ChatGPT, I'm not I'm not here to teach you, how to replace your human judgment when it comes to using AI. And I'm not talking about generic, AI for educator tips. It's really about digging into some deeper things that we can use AI for to help us kind of change how we do things and revolutionize our leadership. All right, so what the session is about is transforming how you think through complex problems. So we know that AI can do a lot of things like save us time and write emails for us. But if you use it correctly, you can actually use it to help you think through your actions and your decisions a lot better. And if you give it give it as much information as you can, which I'm going to show you how, it can help you make better strategic decisions. And using AI as a thinking partner, not just an assistant to do things for you. Uh, and then solving persistent leadership challenges that keep reoccurring. So you're not actually solving them if they keep reoccurring, right? So we're going to try to get to the bottom of them using AI. And then we are going to talk about how you can prevent costly mistakes before you implement certain things because you have thought through them with a thinking partner. You're going to definitely gain perspectives that you've never considered alone. And we know as leaders, sometimes you have to make decisions without consulting other people. You can't always bring together a big group of people to make decisions. And so sometimes, but you want to think about things with somebody else, but you don't really have that ability. So hopefully today's session will help you become a more confident and effective leader with the things that you are learning. All right, so AI for school leaders. This is what everyone thinks is email writing and newsletter creation and lesson planning and these basic administrative tasks. Now, there are sessions for that. There are people out there that do sessions for that, and I could even help with a session on that. But that is not what we're talking about today. What AI for strategic leadership actually means are the real game changers that we're going to help you with today to think better and decide smarter and lead with confidence. So these are some of the ways, these are the 6 categories of ways of thinking and ways of using AI to help you that we're going to learn today. So we have culture and climate innovation. We have strategic decision-making tools. And I know you're probably wondering, how the heck can AI do all this stuff? Well, you're going to see, and I think you'll walk away with some bold ideas. Communication and relationship building, professional development and growth, even crisis and change management. I know, sounds crazy, right? But it can help you with that. And then, of course, student-centered leadership. We always want to, students are the reason we do what we do. So let's include them in our learning. So we're going to start off with some strategic decision-making tools. And I'm going to share 3 ideas in each category of how you can use AI for that particular category. So in strategic decision making, you can use AI as a devil's advocate. This seems to be everybody's favorite when I share this session. So I always like to start with it. Is to train AI to challenge your decisions by presenting counter arguments and potential blind spots before you have important meetings. And so I'm going to share a a prompt with you here in just a minute that explores that and gives you an example of how you might do that. But a lot of times we make decisions without thinking them completely through and how they're going to affect other people. We think we are thinking through those things, but there are always blind spots that we aren't considering. And by using AI as like a devil's advocate, that might not be the correct, politically correct term anymore. I don't know. We might have to find a different term for that. But it can really help you to see a 360 perspective of things before you actually implement them. So I'm going to show you how we can do that. Another way that you could use AI is as a stakeholder perspective simulator. Say that 3 times fast. Stakeholder perspective simulator. So this can help you if you input a decision and then you have AI respond from different viewpoints. So you ask it, hey, I'm going to give you this decision that I'm planning to make. And I want you to respond to me as if you were a parent, as if you were a teacher, and have it respond to you in all of those different perspectives. And that way, you are taking into consideration those perspectives. Now, this isn't going to take the place of meeting with people throughout the year and making decisions with them. But when you don't have the ability, you can't do this every time you make a decision, right? You can't call together the whole community every time you have a big decision to make. So when you can't actually bring them together, then this is a good way to kind of mimic that, is to have AI act as if they are responding to you from that perspective. And that will help you as well get that 360 view. And then the third one, when it comes to strategic decision making tools, is to use AI as a policy impact predictor. So when you're thinking about implementing a new policy, have AI generate the potential unintended consequences and then the challenges that you might face through implementation. So I know in Texas, we just recently implemented the no cell phone policy and in schools. And for some schools, it's no big deal. They maybe have had a policy for a little while, but for others, it's a really big deal. Now, because it's now law, you don't really have the option to could implement it or not. You just have to do it. But if you had another decision, maybe something to do with dress code or something else that you are now implementing in your school, you might have AI act as someone who can help you generate potential unintended consequences that you may not be thinking of. And all of these things can help you really get a good 360 perspective of the issue, the problem, the decision, the policy that you're thinking about making. So the next category is professional development and growth. So I like to think about using AI in some of these ways to help me grow as a leader. So using it as a leadership style mirror. Okay. You ask AI after you've used it quite a bit, and our chat gpt, Gemini, whatever we use, it tends to learn us after a while. It learns our style. It learns how we tend to communicate and act, as if you use it a lot, right? So you can ask AI to act as a mirror, and analyze your communication patterns and reflect your tendencies and your blind spots and then some growth areas. I've done this. I've done this myself and asked for it to give me my strengths, my blind spots, areas I need to grow in. And you'd be surprised at how accurate it really is when you ask it to help mirror, hold up a mirror to you and give you that information. And sometimes you have to be a little stern with it and be like, don't flatter me too much, because it does tend to do that sometimes. You have to really prompt it to say, give it to me straight. Like, tell me, where the areas are I need to grow in. And then another area for professional development and growth is mentorship matching algorithm. So this is not to develop yourself, but maybe to develop other people. So you can use AI to pair your staff members based on different skills and personalities and their goals. So I envision using this as maybe you put a survey out towards the beginning of the year and say, we want to pair everybody, or at least, some people up with a mentor. And so you have them fill out these surveys and then asking them, questions about their growth areas, things they want to work on, things they're already good at, kind of their personality style. And then you can upload that information without names, of course, put in some synthetic data like, something representing their name or number or something. But use AI to pair those staff members into a good partnership instead of just the person next door or the person across the hall. I remember when I was a first year teacher and the person I that was my mentor had only been teaching for 2 years, and she was just the person next door, the person that was on my team, and she didn't know a whole lot about what she was doing any more than I did. And so I just didn't feel prepared. I didn't feel like I had the best mentor. I then sought out my own mentor, someone down the hall who had been teaching for a lot more, for a lot longer, and knew a lot more about the profession and about what I was teaching. And so that helped me. But, it's not always best practice to just pick the person next door, who is going to be the mentor, right? So match them according to, what they really need. Another area that you can use AI for professional development is an innovation incubator. This is one of my favorite uses. Is I like to think about problems from multiple perspectives. And I like to share my problems with people who work in other industries and kind of get their ideas, because every industry has different ways of solving problems, right? And sometimes we get stuck in our silos in education, and we only think about them from our perspective as educators. But a lot of times, as educators, we have worked our way up from teacher through, administrator, principal, maybe even district leader, but we've never really had true corporate experience or real leadership experience or training in different things that corporate, people on the outside might get. And so getting perspectives on problems from other industries, while it would be amazing if you could like sit down with people from other industries and get their ideas, you could also use AI as someone who can help you create solutions by giving you, answers and perspectives from other industries. And I'm going to show you kind of a prompt that might help later on, how you might do that. But think about like, how would the healthcare industry approach this one problem that you're having in education, or how would the hospitality industry address this? And AI can help you in those areas. All right, the next category is crisis and change management. So here are some ways that AI can help you in that regard. So first, we can use it as a scenario planning assistant. So you can input your current challenges and then have AI generate multiple future scenarios with corresponding action plans. So when you have your current, issues and things that you're dealing with, it's hard to see into the future and know what's going to come later because of those challenges. So use AI to help you generate future scenarios and think through those problems with the AI and come up with some action plans to address those things that are likely going to come up based on those scenarios. The next one is the change resistance predictor. And I don't know about you, but anytime any leader knows that whatever you do, you're always going to face resistance when it comes to change. So by using AI as a change resistance predictor, you can identify which staff members might struggle with your new initiatives or with any new policy or things like that. And then the AI can help you get personalized change management strategies. There's a little typo there, for different skills, personalities, and growth goals. So, you can ask AI to think through the problem with you and say, what are the resistant teachers or, staff members going to say what what will their perspective be when it comes to this policy that I'm going to implement or this decision that I'm going to make. Help me think through this problem from the people who I know are going to resist, like the veteran, teachers or the new teachers or um, people who are new to the district or who don't enjoy, technology or whatever it is that the issue is. Have it think through those change resistant perspectives. And then the third one is the crisis communication generator. So we all, as much as we hate it, we know that there are eventually going to be some crisis situations that we have to deal with. And so a good way to use AI might be to pre-develop some responses, just some template responses for various crisis scenarios. And then you can easily use those in the situation when they come up. And so you already have something prepared that maintains your authentic voice. And you kind of keep a log or a Google Doc or whatever of those templates. So when that situation arises, you have something that you can come to and use without having to sit and try to think of something to say when you're in the middle of the issue. And so that's a good way to try to use AI for that. All right, the next category is communication and relationship building. I know, how can I use AI for this? It sounds counterintuitive, right? Building relationships using AI. But there are some ways that I believe you can use AI to help you in building relationships and improving your communication. And so, one of those, if you are someone who has to plan meetings at any point, use AI as the meeting mood optimizer. All right, so you have, a meeting coming up, and you have some things that you need to talk about, some very specific things. Well, use AI, give those things to the AI, and let it help you come up with a flow for your agenda, even like the room setup and some conversation starters based on the big topics of the agenda. Um, if it's going to be something, not so lighthearted, something deep and something tough, then, have it, you're not going to want to do an icebreaker that's all fun and games, right? And so it might help you to say, okay, I'm going to start with the big problem, but then we're going to talk about some more lighthearted things, and then we'll end on something that will boost morale. But it can help you to suggest a good flow for your meeting. And just you put in the topics, and it will help you. Do people need to be in pairs for this? Do they need to be sitting by themselves? Do they need to be in groups? Should we all be standing? And just getting those ideas from somebody beside yourself can help you. The next one is something we all deal with, a difficult conversation rehearsal. Now, I just recently learned Magic School, if you've ever used Magic School, has a brand new tool called, I think it's called Difficult Conversation or Crucial Conversation or something along those lines. But they stole the idea from me. Not really, but this is a good way to use AI to help you practice those challenging conversations. Now, I will tell you, when I was an assistant principal, the first time I had to have a really, crucial conversation for someone was the most anxious I'd ever been in my job in my life, because I am not like a confrontational person. I do not like having to have those tough conversations with people. And I was really freaking out a lot about how I was going to have this conversation with somebody. And if I would have had an AI back then to help me think through the conversation and kind of plan for it, man, that would have made me feel so much better about it. So you can use AI to help you practice those conversations, and by telling it like what the personality types that you might be dealing with is, like the defensive teacher, an angry parent, or a resistant staff member, and have AI kind of role play for you, where you can have those conversations. Now, you can have the conversation back and forth as typing it, if you're using ChatGPT or Gemini. But you could also turn on the voice mode, and have it actual conversation. Like these are things I like to do while driving or on a walk with my dog or things like that. I might role play and practice those conversations with the AI. All right, the next one is use it as a community voice amplifier. So if you use AI, help you to get perspectives of the underrepresented voices in your schools and in your communities, and get feedback, and then let it suggest ways for you to reach those groups. There are groups that just aren't represented well in whether you get surveys that you send out or people that respond to emails or social media. You're not getting an accurate idea just from 20 people that fill out your survey if you've got 3,000 people in your school. And so use AI as a community voice amplifier to help you gain perspective from other areas that are underrepresented. And I'm going to show you here in a few minutes how you might do that and maybe a prompt that can help you with that. All right, I think we have one or two more categories, and then we are going to actually dig in and show you how that might work. All right, so student-centered leadership. I One of my favorite things that I learned several years ago, and I was going through a kind of a leadership cohort with the Holdsworth program. Some of you might have heard of that, but I got to learn a lot about problem solving there, and that people maybe in corporate have gone through things like this and learned, but I know in the education industry we may not have ever gone through things like this as teachers, because like I said, we go from teacher to administrator to leader to principal and things like that. We haven't really had a lot of training on this kind of stuff. So I love using protocols and different ways of working through problems. And one of the the best things I ever did was learn how to use or how to get to the root cause of issues. And so the root cause detective is one of my favorite ways of using AI, or just you don't even have to use AI for a root cause detective. You have to think through it with a group of people. But what if you don't have a group of people, or you really need to dive deep into this, maybe quickly, and you don't have all the people that you need in order to get into the root cause of it? So this is a time when instead of treating symptoms, you want to find the real causes of the big prominent issues to help you, to help improve your understanding and come up with solutions. And so I'm going to show you a way that you can use AI as a root cause detective here in just a minute. You can also use it as an equity lens checker. So when you are thinking about some decisions that you have coming up, before you make those decisions, run it, ask the AI to be an equity lens checker or a filter that will highlight some potential impacts that you might have on different student groups that you may not think of. If you come to education through a certain lens and you have a different perspective, a different privileged kind of perspective on life or on education, you might not think about how your decisions are going to impact different groups of students. And so use AI to help you think through those things. And then even using AI as an achievement gap detective. Use some student data without their personally identifiable information to help reveal some systemic issues that you might not recognize otherwise. You can upload information and data that does not include student information that can really help you get at the root of some of those issues that might reveal some systemic things that you need to address. Okay, that was the last of the categories, and hopefully you're thinking of some good ways to use AI already, and any of those sound good to you. In fact, I'd love to hear in the chat now, if you don't mind, which of all of those that I just shared, so that was 3 times 6, 18 different ideas, which one is the one you're really thinking about and you want to get to to practice. While you're doing that, I'm going to start sharing the devil's advocate because I know that a lot of you are interested in how you can use AI as a devil's advocate. Yeah, so leadership analysis and looking at decisions from different perspectives, definitely both of those can be really helpful. All right, let's get back into it. There we go. Okay, there we go. So we're going to do a live demo here in just a second of the devil's advocate AI. And so we're going to think about this decision of eliminating study hall and in place of and using mandatory intervention time instead. Now, you may have done something like this in your schools. I know that sometimes you have a free period or something that has become a free period, and you want to change that into a real um, actual time that can be used as intervention, and where your students, where your teachers actually have to do, some work with students, some small group work or things like that. And so you need to think about how you're going to implement this using the devil's advocate AI. Dr. Alexander, we have a question.
I just wanted to let you know that we also had a couple of more responses, and both of them said root cause analysis is what
All right.
they were looking for.
Perfect. Well, that's another one we're going to demo here in just a minute. So I'm excited that that's something that everybody is interested in.
I also
All
wanted to
right.
know that we are still seeing your slideshow.
Okay.
Just
Perfect.
okay.
Okay. Good. That's what we want to see for the moment. And then we're going to jump into actually demonstrating this. Okay. So here's the prompt that we're going to practice with. And we're going to put this into an AI in just a second. So I'm planning to eliminate our current study hall period and replace it with mandatory academic intervention time. Students will be assigned to specific teachers based on their current lowest grades and core subjects. Teachers will be required to provide targeted instruction during this time rather than general homework help. I believe this will be more effective than our current study hall, where students often waste time or socialize. Play devil's advocate and challenge this decision with legitimate concerns I should consider before implementation. Be specific about potential problems and unintended consequences. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to take all of this text, I'm going to copy it, and I'm going to go into, I'm actually going to use Gemini rather than ChatGPT. Um, both of them work for different things. I like to use Gemini a lot of times for my school centered things, and ChatGPT use it for more personal type stuff. I don't know why. That's just how I keep stuff. Um, there probably are reasons like the fact that you can export straight to Google Docs and things like that. But I love Gemini for this. So I'm going to go ahead and paste in the prompt here. And I'm going to actually add something to the prompt. I'm going to say, I'm a school principal of a high school with 2,000 students in a suburban area. Okay. Now we're going to put the rest of that in there and hit enter. And let's see what we get. So it says a devil's advocate perspective reveals several legitimate concerns you should consider. And then it tells me what unintended consequences I might face. So student and teacher morale, that's definitely something that's going to be affected. So it starts with telling me about the students and how students are going to be impacted and their morale. And then for teachers, it's going to give me that perspective of as well. And then it gives me some logistical and resource challenges. And these are definitely things I need to be thinking about, like how will students with more than one low grade be assigned? Or what happens if a student's grade improves mid-semester? Do they stay in that same class, or do they, do we move them? And then it says constant reshuffling could be a logistical nightmare, and that's true. Um, and then the plan assumes every teacher has the skill set and resources to provide effective one-on-one intervention. And maybe our it would require some PD, because this is one of those things. Okay, we might need to do this, but not all of our teachers know how to do proper one-on-one or small group intervention. So that would require some professional development. And then the potential for ineffectiveness. And then it gives me some of the risks here, that it could be less effective than what we're trying to replace. And then some reasons why. And then the last thing it says, this plan may not address the underlying reasons why a student is struggling. So they might be struggling due to issues like a lack of sleep, family problems, or learning disability. And simply providing more instruction may not be enough to solve the problem. So these are all some really good ideas. I could dig further into them if I wanted to, and say, let's dig, further into the logistical challenges and how might I address those. So we could keep the conversation going rather than just taking the first thing that it gives us. We could keep the conversation and say, let's think more about the logistical issues. How do I address those? Okay. So now we've got some ideas to implement, or to address those issues that the devil's advocate came up with for us. And so we've got lots of ideas here. And just in 2 minutes, I got all of these devil's advocate perspectives. I got some potential solutions, like 3, 6, 9 solutions just to one part of the problem. And this didn't require a 1 hour meeting or a 2 hour meeting with a bunch of people. This helped me to come up with some ideas before I bring it to my group of people to have those conversations. All right. So that is one example, the devil's advocate prompt. So let's look at the next one we have is okay. So this is when I'm going to give you a chance to actually do this on your own. And we can do one for live demonstration. If you want to put one decision you're currently considering, or it doesn't have to be a real one, just something that, maybe you've faced in the past, or a hypothetical, and I'll pick one of them to do a live demonstration. All right, so we will continue, and I'm going to jump into the next idea here and do a live demo for the root cause detective. So let's think about the scenario of chronic absenteeism. And we know after COVID that this has become a really big problem. We've seen some gains in that area, but let's think about absenteeism beyond just the surface level issues. So, I like this graphic that shows that, yes, these are the problems that happen because of chronic absenteeism. But when we look at the root cause, we're gonna we're gonna get to some deeper things that might help us understand it from a different perspective. And so here's one way to use the AI to help you get to the root cause. Now, you might have heard of this before, but I'm a big fan of the 5 whys method to help you get to the root cause of something. And this always helps to do this in a group, but sometimes you don't have time to work with a group to do this. So doing it with an AI who can represent multiple perspectives can help you with this. So essentially, the idea is to use AI as someone who's going to ask you continuous questions. So the five whys method is essentially you tell what the problem is, you state the problem, and then you tell the AI, hey, I'm going to give you a problem. I want you to continue asking me why questions until we get to not, it doesn't always have to get to the absolute root, but at least an addressable uh, cause that can help solve that issue. So why did that problem occur? And then you give an answer, and then it's going to ask you, okay, but why did that problem occur? Or why is this? And then you just keep going, and it's going to keep asking you questions to help you get to the bottom of the issue. So I have an example of this, and here's a prompt that we can use. And I have all these sample prompts for you in the resource that I'm going to share in just a little bit. All right, so here's the prompt. I need help investigating a problem using the five whys method. The problem is chronic absenteeism at our high schools increased 40% this year. Guide me through the five whys process. Start by asking me, why do you think students are chronically absent? And then continue asking why to each answer I give, probing deeper each time. Help me avoid surface level assumptions and dig for root causes. After each why, suggest what data I should look at to verify my assumption. All right, so let's take it to the AI and let's start a new chat, paste in our prompt. All right, and then it's going to help me with the problem. And it says, why do you think students are chronically absent? Now, notice this is not an advertisement for Gemini, but this is a great thing that Gemini does is it has deep research, and it could actually research for you and come up with a whole research plan if you want to get to the bottom of this. But that will pull information and resources from all over and put together a whole research paper basically for you using AI. But I'm just going to respond. Why do I think students are chronically absent? They don't like school. And then we're going to keep going. Why don't they like school? And then it gives me just what I asked. To verify this assumption, you could look at data from student surveys, interviews, and focus groups that ask about their attitudes. You could also look at attendance data to see if there are patterns. And so I could say, you know, why don't they like school? And I could say it starts too early. And then it's going to continue asking me questions. It's called the five whys method. It doesn't always take five to get there. Sometimes at three, you go, oh, okay, I know what we could do. Or it could take more than five to actually get to a point where you have something that you can implement to resolve or at least address in a big way that problem. So we could keep this conversation going, but then we'd be here for a while trying to come to the solution for chronic absenteeism and solve all the world's problems right here together. All right, so that's one area. You could also use the fishbone analysis. Now, this is a really great way to do with a group of people, is to come up with you essentially state what the problem is, and then you have different categories of causes that you're thinking about to get to the root problem of this. Okay, how are groups of people contributing to this problem? How are machines or technology contributing to this problem? What are some different methods we're using that contribute? So these are the six categories of the fishbone diagram that can help you get to the causes and then the things that you can respond to those causes. So if you realize, okay, for people, there's one root cause that's really something we can actually address, then you kind of like circle that one and come back to it and go, okay, maybe even use the AI. We've discovered that this certain group of people are contributing to this one problem. So, you know, use the AI to ask how you can address that problem with those people. So this is one way of looking at the problems. Okay, next, This was one of my favorite ones that I shared with you earlier is the innovation incubator. So this is where we have a problem and we ask the AI to act as someone who can give us cross industry solutions. All right, so what if our problem is students vaping in bathrooms despite traditional approaches? Well, we know this is definitely a problem in most of our high schools, some middle schools even. So how could we address this and look at it from another perspective? Well, we could go to AI, put in a prompt, and say, here's an issue that we're dealing with in our school. How would people from the healthcare industry address this? How would people in hospitality address this? How might people who work in construction address this? And just tell the AI that you want to address it from multiple industries and see what common or what solutions they come up with. They're going to come up with some things that you might not have ever thought of before. And it might not lead to the perfect solution, but it might come up with some things that spark an idea in your head about how you can address it. Like I know I used to, I have my partner used to work in healthcare and in the logistical side of healthcare and management and facilities and things like that. So I sometimes would go to her with my problems in education, and she would say, "Oh, well, you know how we deal with this," and then she would come up with ideas that actually would help me. And the same thing, you might do this at home with your partner who works in a different industry. They might share their problem, and then you can go, well, you know how in education we deal with this. And this is the same thing, but coming up with from different industries and coming up with different ideas from those industries. And don't worry, I've got a prompt for you for all of these that I'm sharing in our resources. Okay, so the next idea is the community voice amplifier. Who are you not hearing? Okay, the thing is, your positive feedback that you think you got isn't the full story. So if you surveyed, like use this prompt, we surveyed families about math curriculum and we got 200 out of 800 responses. Most came through our online portal and parent Facebook group. The feedback was mostly positive. Act as a voice for the community and help me understand whose voices I may not be considering. Put this prompt into the AI and it's going to say, oh, well, you may not have listened to the single moms who were able to, respond, or the working parents, who didn't have a chance to respond to this, or people who speak different languages, maybe they didn't respond. So you're not getting an accurate representation of the community. So you can ask the AI to act as that community voice amplifier for you. All right, here is the virtual leadership shadowing. Here's an idea to use AI to help you discover how your leadership style could use some assistance. So you explain maybe an issue that you recently had, like this: an angry parent confronted me in the main office in front of other families. I moved them to my office and listened for 20 minutes before scheduling a follow up. What are some alternative approaches, missed opportunities, or growth areas I might consider to improve my leadership? So you ask the AI this after a recent, solution or a recent thing that you did, and ask, you tell it what you did, what the problem was, and how you addressed it, and then ask it to kind of analyze your how you reacted and what you could have done better in that situation. Okay. And then, oops, I went backwards. Here's an idea for the stakeholder perspective simulator. This is that one that could be a tongue twister if you tried, to see through different eyes. So here's a prompt for that. I'm not going to read the whole thing for you, but I'll start with I'm a school principal considering implementing a new cell phone policy. Students will receive the pouches at the beginning of the day and lock them. Here's my reasoning. And then here's what I want the AI to do: act as different stakeholders and respond to this policy from each perspective, and then list out the different perspectives that you want them to respond from. And then make sure you tell it, like, for each perspective, here's what I want you to include. and give it those reasons. And then the task that you're actually giving the AI is help me anticipate the full range of reactions so I can prepare comprehensive responses and modification. Now, almost every prompt, you'll notice that almost every prompt that I write or create has some similar elements, right? And I didn't put this in the presentation, but I probably should have. I use a method called RTAC, RTAC, and that stands for role, task, audience, and context. And I try to always include those four things in my prompts when I'm using AI. You've probably heard of different prompt formats and frameworks, and lots of them work. This is the one that works best for me. I call it again. It's RTAC, RTAC, role, task, audience, context. If you include those four things, you're going to get the best response rather than just putting a very basic prompt in there. So I'm going to show you what this looks like. I'm actually going to copy all of this and try it out on the chat. Okay. So can you imagine how long this would actually take you if you were to do this in real life without AI? And then just the fact that you can get so many different perspectives. Now, I get that they are not true, real perspectives, but they are at least something that kind of mimics those perspectives, that at least helps you think through a problem in a different way. So we have the concerned parent and what they might ask and what their concerns might be. We have the veteran teacher and what their concerns might be, the anxious high school student. We got the school board member. We got the special needs parent. And those of you in Texas have already heard all of these issues and hopefully have thought through them and addressed them with your leadership teams. But if not, this is a great way to try that. All right, what do we have next? So let's think about how they work together. Let's say you can actually use all of these different tools, or not all of them at the same time, but you could use kind of what I call like app smashing when you use different websites or apps to kind of put them all together for one thing. So you can use the root cause detective, like for the example of standards-based grading. It's something you're thinking about implementing. So first, you want to get to the root cause of why is your current grading system failing. Then use AI as the devil's advocate and think, what could go wrong with standards-based grading? And then, of course, use the community voice amplifier once you come up with your implementation. And then use the innovation incubator of how other industries might measure that performance. So what you get when you do something like this is you get real strategic transformation, not just a change, right? Because you're not looking for a change, you are looking for solutions. And there's a big difference between changing something and solving something. So here's some what happens if you use AI to help you with your leadership transformation. Before AI, before using these tips, you are sometimes reactive. You make decisions based on your gut sometimes, more crisis driven and isolated thinking. With AI, you're more proactive, you are more evidence based, you are systematically preventive, sorry. And then you are someone who considers multiple perspectives before implementing policies or decisions. So here's some things that I want you to try starting this week. I want you to pick one persistent problem, not just like a small thing, but one persistent problem, and use AI to help you do a root cause analysis and try to get to the big reason, the big thing that you can actually address, not like a whole worldwide systemic problem because, we can't always address that in 1 week, but something that you can actually do to solve that problem. And then choose one upcoming decision and ask AI to play the devil's advocate. And then identify one challenge that's needing some creative thinking, some creative problem solving, and use AI as an innovation incubator. Those are your 3 things to try this week. All right. And how are you going to know that it's working? Well, because your problems are going to stay solved instead of reoccurring. Your staff is going to say, you know what? It sounds like you really thought this through. And you're going to be like, I did, and AI helped. Also, it can help you you're going to solve persistent leadership challenges that keep recurring rather than just keep addressing the same challenges over and over and over. You're not really solving them, right? Fewer surprised faces in meetings because you're going to actually have thought things through. And when you introduce problems, you're going to be able to address some of those issues beforehand, and teachers are going to appreciate that. You're going to come up with more innovative solutions because you're using the innovation incubator and things like that. And then all of this hopefully is going to increase your stakeholder buy-in anytime you are making those decisions, things like that. All right, so this is going to become your new normal. This is how you're going to develop a habit of making AI leadership your new normal. So first, start with low stakes decisions. Don't start with the biggest problem your school faces. And then share one insight per week, one AI insight per week with your team. Track which methods work for different problems. And then you're going to build confidence before tackling your major challenges. So by doing all of these things, you're creating a new habit formation and how you address things. Now, there are ways that you can actually build your own tools to create your own custom GPTs or gems in Gemini that can be the devil's advocate or can be the root cause analysis. And then you don't have to prompt it every single time to be the devil's advocate. It already knows to be that. So because we have a little bit of time, I am going to show you in just a moment how you can create your own custom. I'm going to do a gem on Gemini, but it works just the same in ChatGPT. But I do have a video and 2 articles that walk you through doing it if you need to come back to this to learn how to create your own custom GPT. But we're going to look at how to do that in just a moment. Now, these are your resources that you've been waiting for. And I'm giving them to you now because we are going to use them in just a moment. I have a document that's going to be shared here in the chat. And it's a Google Doc that has a bunch of resources. It has a complete prompt library for all 6 categories that we went over today. It has the implementation workflow for all of the, sorry, I got distracted by something on the screen. It has the implementation workflow for the devil's advocate that we just went through and the root cause detective and how you might go through those. It has some custom GPT examples, which we're going to use in just a second. And then it has some follow-up resource links, including one of those is the RTAC prompt framework that I just talked about. And you can get that by going to bit.ly/AI-leader-GPTs. And we're going to try that now. So I'm going to click on it. And this is what you see. In the top left corner, there's a drop down. And this is where you can see all the different, sorry, let me start with on the front page. This is actually a link to the slides for today. The image here or the bit.ly will take you to the link for the slides for today. And then in the top left corner is a drop down. So you have the 10 custom GPT ideas for school leaders, and we're going to build one of those in just one moment. But this is the prompt that you can use to create your own custom GPT. Then we have the workflow to do the devil's advocate implementation and the use case examples for implementing the devil's advocate. Just some ideas there. Here's the workflow. And then here's some advanced applications that you might use that for. And then just something to consider the balancing act of when to listen and when to push forward when it comes to um, using these tools. And then there's tracking your success and common pitfalls to avoid when you are using these tools and making decisions. And then here's a great quick reference checklist before making any major decision. Run it through the devil's advocate, identify your top three most serious concerns, develop some mitigation strategies, revise your plan based on the feedback, test your revised plan, and then prepare your responses for anticipated pushback, and then proceed with confidence. So that's using the devil's advocate. We also have a whole the implementation guide for the root cause detective and all of those same things here. The core prompt template. So here's what you would copy and paste into the AI to help you solve that problem. Here's a sample workflow. Here's the next method using the fishbone analysis, the advanced fishbone prompt, how to choose your method, advanced applications, investigation workflow, common traps. Okay. And lots of good stuff to help you when you're thinking about using this. All right. The next thing I have is the admin toolkit. I've got lots of prompts for helping you with different things. Now, these are the things I didn't talk about today. The easy things, the basic things when it comes to using AI as an admin, drafting communications, teacher support, professional development planning. So these are just some prompts to help you with that and some tips for using it as this thing. So for parent and stakeholder communication, write a message to families about a bus delay using a calm, informative tone. So this is where you develop those crisis templates before you actually have a crisis. So these are all lots of good sample prompts and best practices. Okay, then we have the RTAC prompt framework and kind of a walkthrough of how to address or how to include the RTAC framework when you are prompting an AI. So here's the weak example, write a parent email. And then here's a better example using the RTAC method. And then I have this image. You can actually get the PNG or the PDF at my website at CaitlinCloyd.com, which I'll share with you on another page. But if you want to use this, print it out or use it, for anything you can. Got the AI implementation canvas. This is the leader's guide. If you are thinking about using AI for a challenge that you have at your school, you can kind of plan it out like this. What is the challenge? What is the solution that AI has helped you come up with? What are the implementation steps? What resources are needed? What team members are needed? And what are your measures of success going to be? And then this explains how to use the implementation guide and some examples of how you might use it. And then I have this prompt bank for school leaders using the RTAC method. So draft a weekly staff memo. Here's a prompt. Create a Spirit Week poster. There's a prompt. So I've got lots of prompts here for you using the RTAC method. So you get really comfortable using that framework. And then last is these are some good AI tools for school leaders. This is what I call a clickable guide because it has links for everything. So, of course, there's ChatGPT on there and what ChatGPT does, custom GPTs, Gemini is Google's version of ChatGPT, which that's what I've been working in. Claude is another version of ChatGPT. It's not a version of ChatGPT, but it is a large language model that I think is really great at writing. So if you need a good writing task, Claude has the best writer. Notebook LM has been making a lot of waves recently. You can take a bunch of documents and resources, and it will synthesize all of those for you, and it can turn it into um, podcast style, like an audio overview. And most recently, now they have video overviews. It turns it into like a 6 or 7 minute video overview. Magic School, of course, is one of my favorites when it comes to AI tools in education. Otter AI or Fireflies AI. If you attend a lot of virtual meetings, it can record and transcribe those meetings and summarize them for you. Gamma is one of my favorite tools to create. It can create slide decks for you. It can create like really nice, pretty documents, websites, reports. And then, of course, Canva has AI tools that are very helpful. And then if you like creating images with AI, there's ChatGPT. One of my favorites is Ideogram. You have Adobe Express and then Meta AI. I don't use Meta AI for a lot of things, but it is pretty good at creating images. And then some ideas for using AI for team building and culture. Okay, before we finish, I'm going to show you quickly how to create your own custom GPT or your own custom gem. So I'm going to copy this stuff right here, the devil's advocate. We're going to create our own custom GP or custom gem here. So I'm going to go on Gemini and I'm going to click on the over here on the left side of my screen. And where it says gems, I'm going to click where it says explore gems. And you have some pre-made by Google gems here, but we're going to create our own. And I'm going to click new gem. And because I've pasted all that information, I'm going to first just put it in the instructions. I'm going to cut this and paste it in the name. And then I'm going to leave these instructions. So this is the instructions for the GPT or the GEM. You are a critical thinking partner for school leaders. When I present a decision or policy, your job is to identify potential problems, unintended consequences, and stakeholder concerns that I might have missed. Ask probing questions and demand evidence for assumptions. Be thorough and constructive. And so you could upload information or documents that you have to, help reference this. You can also click this button and it will rewrite the instructions for you to be, better if you don't write very, very well. But once I have it the way I want it, I can test it out here. But let's say I've tested it and everything's the way I want. Then I click save. Okay, and then I can click start chat. And then anytime I want to use the devil's advocate, I can come into Gemini. And let me show you, I can come over here and it will be on under my gems. And I just click on the devil's advocate assistant and I put in the problem or the thing that I'm working on. And I don't have to prompt it to tell it, you are a devil's advocate. Here's what I want you to do. You just put in the problem and say, this is what I want you to help me with. And it will go through that problem because you've given it those instructions on the back end. So hopefully that makes sense on creating your custom GPT. All right, we're getting to the end here. Your challenge is to use I say leave work today. It's Saturday, so, don't do any work today. But use one leadership tool this week. And then I would love for you to share your insights with me on either LinkedIn or Twitter or something, use the hashtag AI Leadership 2025 and then tag me with your results because I want to see and celebrate your success. All right, questions. Do you have questions? Something I want you to be thinking about is what specific challenges are you thinking about applying these tools to? And maybe you can share that in the chat. And while you are thinking about that, again, what specific challenges are you thinking about applying these tools to? Here's my name, my information again, Caitlin Cloyd. You can find me at linkedin.com/n/Caitlin Cloyd. Make sure it's an I, not a Y. And here is some additional information for LinkedIn. There's my website there that has links to all of the above and more. My email address if you want to reach out, and then my book if you're interested in learning more about AI and education. I just published a book about 6 weeks ago, maybe, and it's called Amplified Education: Creating Future Ready Schools in the Age of AI. All right. Well, hopefully, let's get back and let me see where we're at. I'm going to stop sharing my screen for now and see what we have in the chat.
I think the first one you answered, which was about the
Okay.
do you have a list of prompts
Mm-hmm.
that can help out? It says, do you happen to have
Yes.
a list of some useful prompt templates we could have on hand for whenever we might need it, like something to save in our Google Drive just in case? And I feel like you answered that.
Okay. Good. Good. Hopefully that resource helps everybody.
And then any thoughts about AI use transparency in decision making slash planning? Staff have lots of questions about when it should be disclosed.
I definitely think you should disclose it and be transparent every time you use it. In my book, I at the last page of my book, I wrote, I here's what I used and how I used it to help me in writing this book. I used, ChatGPT to help me outline, put my thoughts together into, something that made sense. And I use Claude to help me phrase certain things in a different way. So it's very helpful to be transparent with your staff because you don't want it to be secretive. You want them to know it's okay to use AI for certain things and reveal that to people.
And those are all the questions that I see.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you everybody so much for being here and for sharing your ideas. And I just really appreciate it. Feel free to reach out to me at any time. You have now the resource, you have my information, you have all the links that you need, hopefully. And feel free to reach out to me later on if you have anything you want to talk through. I'm happy to help you.
Thank you. I just want to say I really love this presentation, not only because like you started giving us the this is how you can do it. And most people kind of stop right there. It's like, hey, this is how you can do it. You're like, okay, I got some good ideas, and you just kind of leave. But this has been awesome because not only did we get the good ideas, then we saw it in action. And we saw some ways, like I know some people are sitting there like, okay, I want to take this, but I want to modify it this way. So they're just leaving with such incredible tools and ways to use it. Just impeccable. Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. Thank you all again.